Thank you very much to David and the Venetian Blondes. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance and boxing fans joining us across the nation, we welcome you to the Great Western Forum for a featured attraction of the evening, brought to you by Forum Boxing Incorporated, along with Budweiser, the undisputed king of beers. This bout coming away is sanctioned by the North American Boxing Federation. The president, Sammy Macias, supervisor at ringside, Colleen Patchen, along with the California State Athletic Commission. The chairman is Willie Buchanan, vice chairman Ernie Weiner. Introducing to you our judges scoring this bout from ringside, Terry Smith, Dick Young, and Cynthia Ross, and our referee in charge of this bout, Vince Delgado. All right, fans, here we go with our main event of the evening, the NABF Flyweight Championship, scheduled for 12 rounds of boxing. Introducing to you first on my left, the challenger fighting out of the red corner. Entering the ring tonight wearing black trunks with gold trim and joining us from San Marcos, Texas. He weighed in at a ready 111 pounds. He is undefeated in his campaign in the ring with 12 wins, no losses, 1 draw, 9 wins coming by way of knockout. Introducing tonight's challenger, Mike Night Train Trejo. His opponent across the ring on my right is the defending champion, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing white trunks with red trim, hailing from East St. Louis, Illinois. He weighed in at the flyweight limit of 112 pounds with a record of 15 wins, 3 losses. He has 8 wins coming by way of knockout. Here is a former U.S. Olympian, currently the defending NABF flyweight champion, introducing Arthur Flash Johnson. Once again, Vince Delgado, our referee in charge, now to give instructions.
All right, get your instructions in this room. Good luck to both of you.
Short and to the point, and the tail of the tape. Johnson is 5'7", Trejo is 5'3". He came in a pound lighter at 111 to 112. He is 27, 4 years younger than Johnson. In the reach department, Johnson has a height and reach advantage, 70 inches to 66. The NABF rules governing this title fight: 10-point must system. Winner of the round gets 10, loser a lesser number. 3 knockdown rule not in effect. There's no standing 8 count. You can be saved by the bell in the last round only. The referee or doctor can stop the fight. And if there's a headbutt, duly noted, it'll go to the cards in the 4th round or later. Vince Delgado's the 3rd man in the ring. We're set to go, and out they come. It is scheduled for 12. Johnson at 5'7" and 112 pounds is really a tall flyweight. Rich, he's well put together, well muscled, and seems to have the perfect physique.
And one thing he does with that height, Tom, is he fights tall. He makes it difficult for you to get to him because he uses his height and reach advantage in every fight. He's got a fine left jab. He moves around the ring and just makes it difficult for you to deal with him and all of the physical advantages that he has.
Yes, he'll seldom stoop or bend over to be as high or as short, the case may be, as his opponent. He indeed will stand there almost upright. Not exactly upright, of course, but he does make you fight his type of fight. And when he said he wanted Mark Johnson, boy, he was adamant about it too, as I recall the conversation not that many weeks ago. Managed by Angelo Dundee. The legend is not with us tonight, but his fighter is.
And trained by Jim Oldenburg, who has done a fine job with him.
Stinging left hook that came out of that almost clinch by kind of sent Trejo away with a ringing in the left ear, to be sure, the right ear.
Flash Johnson's a tremendously skilled fighter. He has decent power. He's not strictly a boxer. He will punch with you if the occasion comes up, and he has been known to knock some guys out, as you can ask Maquito Martinez about that. So, and he does, of course, have that excellent defensive ability. And despite the fact that he moves a lot and boxes a lot, Tom, he makes for good fights because he throws a lot of punches.
Yeah, and I think he is desperate. Maybe desperate isn't the right word. He is certainly anxious to continue to grow with the fans. He would like to be the kind of a fighter they want. If they want him to stand there and mix it up, he has the ability to do that. But he certainly is a crowd pleaser and tries very hard to make for interesting fights. And so far, he hasn't disappointed anyone.
I think we should point out that his opponent, Mike Trejo, was involved in a ring tragedy last year. A fighter that he fought by the name of Ray Hernandez, and defeated, collapsed after that fight and died 2 days later. Sometimes that has an effect on a...
Oh boy. I'm sure it does in the back of his mind. You know, nobody is so insensitive as to not remember that. And fighters, no matter what you think of them, are not totally insensitive people. In fact, they might be some of the quietest, most mild-mannered, meekest people you'd ever meet outside of a ring.
I think it would be safe to say that Gabriel Ruelas, for example, has never been the same yet since he fought Jimmy Garcia in that tragedy-tinged fight. So it's up to Trejo, as long as he's going to continue to try to get through that.
And we could talk about it more as the fight goes along, but round one has come to a close. We'll be back. Round two, and already something to worry about in the corner of Flash Johnson. He's got a cut in the eyebrow above his right eye, and it appeared to be a pretty good-looking, pretty good-sized opening there, Rich.
Yeah, Tom, it's a pretty nasty little gash. It's running up and down. It's a vertical cut, unusual, and so they'll have to attend to that. In the other corner, they were working on one idea with Trejo, and that is to get beside Johnson, don't stand in front of him, and then bang to the body, bang to the body. They kept telling them that over and over again. I think it's a good corner, really, that gives you one or two things at the most between rounds to think about to really try to impress something on a fighter before he comes out to that next round.
Johnson wild with a right and a left. They may have oversold the whole thing to Trejo, though. They kept telling him that Johnson really doesn't have anything, and I think that's really pushing your salesmanship to the limit. Johnson has considerable. He's a fine champion. He's been a fine champion. This is his third title defense, and he wants a world title. Trejo in black, and Johnson with the words Flash across the front of his trunk, taller of the two men.
He has had a couple of opportunities at world titles, but come up just short. We mentioned the fight with Tapia. That was for the 115-pound title. And 2 years ago, he fought Pitchett Sithrang Prachin over in Thailand.
Your old pal over there in Thailand, huh?
Titled the Senior Alphabet. They
Senior Alphabet, indeed.
There's hardly any letters missing from that name.
Oh.
That was a very close fight, too.
Vince Delgado stepping between the two. Vince came over and took umbrage at Rich Murata, who said he was only 3 feet tall in a recent fight.
I don't recall that at all.
Vince came up. He's a delightful guy and was a pretty good fighter in his day. And he came over and we said, well, it was the two big guys in there with you, Vince, that made you look like you're only 3 feet tall. He was in with a bunch of heavyweights. Trejo is not going to be that easy for Johnson.
No, he's got some movement to him. Although he's known as a hitter, Tom, a hard hitter, he's showing some upper body movement, showing a little bit of slippery ability himself.
And he gives you the impression of being just a little bit awkward and hard to fight. He's shorter. He's a pound lighter.
Surprisingly enough, he's doing a good job defensively, but he's got to do more offensively. Yeah, I thought it would be just the opposite.
Yes, his record and past accomplishments would indicate that he's a guy who walks right in and starts throwing punches. Well, he's been busy dodging punches. There's the belt, and that brings us to the end of round number 2, and we'll follow Flash Johnson back to his corner, Arthur, and we'll take another look at that eye. That's Oldenburg.
You got to start putting it together, okay? Not just one at a time. Okay. Lean against that. Lean against that, man. Start putting together. Put him on the ropes and go to that body. Use that jab, right hand behind it.
Some nice work on that cut, Rich.
Well, he's a good man, you know. I I feel a little sorry at times for Jim Oldenburg because he's so overshadowed by the great Angelo Dundee and his greatness. But in his own right, Jim Oldenburg does a very nice job.
Well, to set the record straight, he trains the fighter, and Angelo manages his career. And yet, of course, it is difficult to kind of move along in the shadow of a legend, and Dundee certainly is that, without getting your proper due. But I think fight people realize just how valuable Oldenburg is to the young man you see fighting in the white trunks, trimmed in red.
I got to visit the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Kennesaw, New York over the weekend, Tom.
You must have been thrilled.
Oh, it was a great thrill, and one of the things that they have playing there in the Hall of Fame is a video instruction piece with Angelo Dundee, his own video.
He's a legend because of some of the people he worked with, of course. Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, and I tell you. After Flash Johnson trying to cut the ring off on the elusive shorter of the two, Mike Trejo. Trejo in the brown and yellow. He jumps in, lands a couple of solid shots.
That was a pretty good right by Trejo, but I don't know if leaping punches are going to get the job done against a guy like Arthur Johnson. But Johnson, at least so far, has not been able to. When we were talking to him, you heard it in the corner. He's put punches together. He's rarely landing more than one at a time.
Well, Trejo is awkward. Make no mistake about it. Hard to fight. He doesn't do everything exactly by the book. He'll bounce and slip around and throw a right hand and step inside, grab you and hold on to your right hand while he pumps a few lefts at you, like right then.
Trejo is still working the ring, but I get the feeling he's getting a little bolder here in the round.
He's got 9 knockouts in his 12 victories without a loss. Johnson has won 15 and has 8 knockouts. Trejo hasn't been in with anybody like Johnson. These are bantamweights, flyweights at 111 and 112 pounds. Johnson on the Olympic team in 1988. Waited 4 years following that before he turned professional. He's 31 and Trejo is 27.
Well, he had a great amateur career, Tom. He won 170 out of 190 amateur fights. A 10-time national champion, a world amateur champion. You mentioned an 88 Olympian who made it to the quarterfinal round before being eliminated from the Olympic Games in Seoul. On the other hand, Trejo had only 18 amateur fights, so in terms of experience, he's really outgunned.
He is indeed. Johnson keeps applying the pressure, and Trejo keeps banging back at him as round number 3 comes to a close. We'll be back. Number 4, give him the angles, make him miss, move, keep moving your head, work to the body, throw those right hands. All the instructions, hot and furious in Trejo's corner.
And they also said to him, start pulling the trigger on that hook.
Yep.
That left hook is his best punch. It's what he's known for. It's what he scored his knockouts with. And they want him to start pulling that trigger.
Trejo's in the brown, ribbed in yellow. In the white and red, that's Johnson.
He's a pesky little fighter,
well, I tell you, he's very awkward and very tough to really pin down, and as a result, is tough to fight.
Tom, I didn't think there was a flyweight alive who was quicker than Arthur Johnson, and I think Trejo actually, with the hand speed, might be a shade quicker.
Trejo, the shorter of the two, big right hand by Johnson, and Trejo jumped right into his arms as if to grab on, and is still looking for some place to grab on and hold on with.
He's hurt, Tom. He got tagged with a left hook inside, too, and now he's going to have to survive an onslaught.
Johnson has him backed into his own corner, trying to nail him, but Trejo is not that easy to hit, even though he is hurt. Johnson, of course, is no newcomer to this sport. As Rich told you, an unbelievably long amateur career, 10 times a national amateur champion, so he's not liable to rush into something thinking he's got to put one punch in there to put Trejo away. He'll take his time. He's been there before.
Yeah, I think he has no illusions about his own punching power either, Tom. I mean, that's the thing. He knows what his limitations are. He knows he's got a pretty good punch, but he's not necessarily going to get a guy out of there with one big shot.
No. With a nice jolting little short right uppercut thrown by Arthur Flash Johnson. Trejo, to his credit, fighting back, but the champion slipping some punches, catching him high on the shoulder, covering up. If you had to put it down in the book and chisel it in stone, he's a better boxer than he is puncher as the champion. Very good boxer. So it's hard to find him vulnerable and nail him with something. This is round 4 of a scheduled 12-rounder for the NABF flyweight title. Trejo took a really good shot, Rich, and has weathered the storm. First instinct was just reach out and grab onto something and hold on.
Well, that was a good instinct.
It was indeed. Trejo has fought most of this round practically in his own corner. Still a handful of seconds, no more now as the bell brings it to a close. Probably Johnson's best round with a pretty good shot that started Trejo. Now his corner telling him you got careless.
Side to side, moving your head, throwing your punches. You're standing too straight up. You got to stay crouched. You got to stay crouched. You're fine, but you're going to have to stay crouched. You're standing too straight up on this guy. All right? You've covered real good. He hit you your best shot. You're still here. Now let's go in there and get that round back. What you got to do, you got to quit standing straight up.
Arthur Johnson landed the biggest punch of the fight in round 4. It was a long right. There you see it, and it caught.
Double jab, right hand.
Trejo backing away, backing off, but he landed with most of the power still there. That hurt him for a good 20, 30 seconds.
No more carelessness. Get in there. Side to side. There you go.
Counting on me.
Side to side. Side to side. You go side to side. Don't stand in front of the guy. Get in there and work. You got it, man. Sure.
Well, you got to like that corner over there, Rich, because there was no, flim-flam about it. He said you lost the round. You got to go out and get it back, and you were careless, and you were standing straight up, and the guy nailed you. But go out and get the round back.
I think for the most part he's gotten pretty good advice in his corner.
I do too.
These people, and he seemed fully recovered there in the corner too. Tommy was speaking obviously quite coherently.
Yeah. Trejo, the shorter of the two men, Johnson in white, trimmed in red, is the NABF flyweight champion. Making his third title defense. Won the title vacant when he beat Makito Martinez down at the Pond in Anaheim. Came back with a couple of victories, the last being over Sammy Stewart.
That was a really solid performance by Arthur.
Truly.
Lost only a couple of rounds against a very good fighter.
Trejo had to manhandle the champion a little bit.
I'm afraid on the outside that Trejo is going to be outgunned. Tom, those arms just look to be too long of Arthur Johnson's.
Trejo, if he's going to stay around, is going to have to do as his corner tells him. Keep moving. Give him all those weird angles. There's a right hand high on the...
And when he gets close like that, he can't hold, Tom. He's got a punch inside.
That's right. Yeah, getting inside is no good unless you're going to throw some punches. And they want him to throw that left hand and some uppercuts as well. But he isn't doing it. Most of the time he's really defensively trying to take care of himself in there. And Johnson is quicker, landing some pretty good shots on a nice left hand of his own there a moment ago.
Yeah, he turned it over real nicely, turns his hip right into it, Tom. Gets some power that way.
Johnson's had only 8 knockout victories out of his 15 as a professional. So he is not your big, heavy banger. In that regard, I don't know if anybody hits harder in this division than Mark Too Sharp Johnson. Do you agree with me on that, Rich?
I would say that's probably correct. I've seen tapes of Arbachakov, Tom, but I think that Too Sharp Johnson hits harder. That would be the disparity if Arthur Johnson were to fight Mark Johnson.
Yep.
Would be in the punching power.
Yep. slipped and went down. There was no knockdown. He just slipped and kind of fell. And Vince Delgado, quick to notify the judges of that, and wiped the gloves off. And we continue here in round number 5. Scheduled for 12. And we'll be back to see how round 6 goes after we see about this. The champion Johnson up 49-46 as we go into the 6th round, and there was just a little note of urgency over there from Oldenburg in the corner, Rich, to put some pressure on this guy, put him up against the ropes, and said, "You want to win this fight or don't you?"
I think he was just trying to wake Arthur up a little bit. Tom, I think he is winning the fight, but he wants him to back him up, get him to the ropes, and put more than one punch at a time on him. And use the uppercut when he gets in close. But I think Arthur might have been falling into a little bit of just kind of fighting a formula fight here in the last couple of rounds, and that might be enough to get by, but it's not enough to look scintillating. I think that's what they want. They want to look good enough so that they end up forcing a title fight.
Well, there is some burden that comes with being the champion. You have to perform as such or up to the standards that most people hold for champions, regardless of the weight division you're in, whether it's 112 pounds or 212. Cut that was almost straight up and down right over the right eye and the eyebrow of Arthur Johnson has not been a problem since it first surfaced midway in round number 1. Oldenburg has taken awfully good care of that.
Yeah, and it's helped that Arthur is defensively so proficient that he doesn't get hit much.
But it was a cut in a position where it could have had a debilitating effect on his ability here. I mean, blood pouring down into his right eye. It would certainly have afforded an easy opportunity for that to happen, but they've taken good care of it. Well, the crowd not entirely pleased with the performance of the champion, to be sure. They would like more action than they've seen, and I'm sure Oldenburg in his corner would as well. And I'm sure that Arthur Johnson would like to be a bit more effective than he's been. But Trejo is not that easy a guy to fight. He's awkward, slippery, elusive, quick.
The little move that you saw by Trejo is what his corner had been asking him for there, which is to get to the side of Arthur Johnson, get beside him and throw body punches.
And Johnson's people want him to put this guy against the ropes and get to work on him. So far, this round has been fought right in about a 5-foot circle out there, right in the middle of the ring. Round 6, it's scheduled for 12.
The uppercut inside by Johnson, very effective there as he kept his hands free inside and came right up the middle with it.
He had some pretty solid shots as round 6 comes to a close. We'll be back. For round number 7, Arthur Flash Johnson, the champion, NABF, flyweight title holder in the white trimmed in red, and Mike Trejo, undefeated in the brown trimmed in yellow.
We're looking for Johnson really now to start picking it up, applying more pressure here, getting Trejo to the ropes and trying to do damage there.
Both corners and listening to the conversation in each between rounds, I may be mistaken. I got a feeling that Trejo wasn't really convinced that he was going to be able to do anything with Johnson, despite his corner's good advice.
You're talking from his attitude? And
yes, this is the way he was sitting there.
Yes,
Did you get that?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. His body language, I think, Rich, is what we're talking about. At least that's what I was alluding to. And I don't know that Arthur Johnson, on the other hand, was all that confident about what had been going on for him, but I do think that he feels he's ahead and that he's going to win this fight if nothing else happens. Trejo is not easy to find and easy to hit. He is slippery and quick. Pretty good right, not a bad left by Johnson.
Yeah, I like the left, especially guts. He turned into it, Tom, and he got some power into it. I think he momentarily slowed up Trejo.
Digs a left hand to the body and a chopping left to the jaw. Vince Delgado, refereeing this championship fight tonight. Magic Johnson is here.
Randy Shields, a former welterweight contender, a near champion, is here too.
That's right. And Rodney Peete, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Have our usual complement of stars on hand here. Not that overly enthused about the way things are going here, but coming to a close is round number 7. All right, let's take a moment here and we'll find out about the devastating dozen. And who's on top? Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr., Felix Trinidad. Looking ahead as they look at that list, and we'll get to it in detail, Holyfield, do you think De La Hoya and Trinidad are scheduled soon, Rich?
No, Tom, I think De La Hoya's got Hector Macho Camacho and maybe a return with Pernell Whitaker before that ever happens. That's a fight I would really love to see, though. Either De La Hoya against Trinidad or our number 7 pound-for-pound guy there, Ike Forte.
I haven't heard much from Nassim Hamed of late.
No, well, Nassim seems to be back into his habit of taking on cupcakes and knocking them out quick.
Well, Saturday night in Vegas will be another big one. I know you'll be there for it.
Right.
Holyfield and Tyson.
Right. Are you asking me who I picked here?
Well, I'm going to tell you I will be totally shocked as they come out for round number 8 if Holyfield does not handle Tyson easier this time around.
Well, I'm picking him to win also. I think Evander will win the fight. I think he's too much of everything for Mike Tyson. At least he certainly appeared that way in the first fight, Tom. He dominated every single area of the fight, every category, and he really pummeled him.
Yep. Trejo comes out with a little renewed interest and vigor here in this, the 8th round. It is scheduled for 12.
Seen much of the wanted power of Trejo.
No. In fact, the only punch that has really impressed anybody, or the major one, was the one thrown by Johnson about 4 rounds ago. But Trejo survived that, and we've not had one approximate like it since.
Trejo's been involved in trying to work a strategy here, Tom, and try to use some technique against the taller, very hard to fight guy.
Yep.
Arthur Johnson. Arthur's going to be bigger and taller and rangier than almost all the flyweights he fights, and the fights may not always be pretty. It kind of reminds me of like when Ernie Terrell was fighting as a heavyweight. You know, he was a big giant guy like an octopus, and it was impossible to get near him. And he was a tough guy to fight. And a lot of his fights ended up not being that thrilling.
Yep. The action in round 8. 12 rounds for the NABF flyweight title. Johnson has it, his 3rd championship defense.
We've seen Arthur Johnson, though, several times, Tom. We saw him in just a thrilling fight against Raton Jimenez, and which he just barely lost a split decision in that fight. That was the first time we saw him out here in Los Angeles, and we saw him knock out Makito Martinez in a very exciting fight. That fight against Puma Granados, very exciting fight. But this one, it just hasn't worked out. The styles have not mixed.
No. He's landed some solid shots, and he has scored with a couple of right hands here and a pretty good left. And he is landing almost every time he throws a nice combination against Trejo here. But so far, he hasn't been able to stun Trejo and have him in any serious trouble. But I do believe he's winning the fight. Round 8 in the books, and we'll be back right after this. Brings him out for this, the 9th round of the scheduled 12-round championship fight, and you could have played a tape in both corners. He's ready to go. That seemed to be the consensus conversation, whether you were in Trejo's corner or that of Arthur Flash Johnson.
On the cut on Arthur Johnson's eye worsened a little in that last round. It was bleeding. It was open at the end of that last round and bleeding pretty good. So it got a little bit worse. That could still become a factor if Trejo can land some punches on it.
In the white, trimmed in red. Neither man has been down. Crowd a bit anxious and a bit vocal in that regard. They'd like more action.
Nice work with the jab in this round by Arthur Johnson. I think this is some of the best jabbing we've seen from Flash in this fight. Has come in this round. He's really using that stick nice.
His boxing skills are very evident.
Although they're not as effective and quite as scintillating when you don't have a guy who's really aggressive with you and coming in and making that type of fight against you. Trejo, as we mentioned very early, was showing some slippery instincts of his own. And a pretty good ability to survive, too, when he got in some trouble.
Yes. Johnson, perhaps, Rich, had the best opportunity to display his talents in that fight against Sammy Stewart.
Yeah, he showed a lot in that fight, Tom. He showed really controlled the fight against the guy who's a pretty good fighter and then came to win that.
Trejo is a tough, elusive little guy, bouncing up and down. He's quick as rent. Hard to find him. I don't think he's winning the fight, but the crowd doesn't think much of how things are progressing as we follow the champion back to his corner. Take a look at that eye.
Just breathe. Just breathe. Take some nice breathe. Put this in your back. Put this in your back. Inhale, exhale. Just keep throwing punches here. Back this sucker up. A lot of double jabs, right hands, okay? When he comes, if he gets in close to the body, then to the head.
Giving those angles. You're not giving enough angles, son. You're not giving enough angles. All right? You fight beside him. I want you fighting on this side of him, right over here. I want you fighting this side and step over when you get the chance. Come on, you know? Get in there and work.
What happens when you don't give enough angles? You stand in front of Arthur Johnson and you are prey to his jab at that point.
Trejo, as you watch him come out for this, the 10th round, is 27 years of age. Johnson is 31. Johnson in his 3rd title defense at the NABF flyweight crown. Vince Delgado's the 3rd man in the ring. There have been no knockdowns in the fight. There's a great deal of frustration in Johnson and in his corner, but they haven't been able to put this guy against the ropes and turn loose a series of left and rights to kind of settle this issue.
And he wants to back him up and back him to the ropes, but Trejo just really doesn't allow that.
They could have worn out a hole right in the middle of the ring here at the Great Western Forum. They haven't been against the ropes but a couple of times in this entire scrap. And about the best thing that Johnson had going for him, he had Trejo right in his own corner. He was hammering him pretty good. He weathered that storm.
Really only one time that I thought it looked as though Trejo might go. I think it was back in round 4. A long right hand by Arthur Johnson connected. Had Trejo in momentary trouble. He was staggering a little, reaching for Johnson to try to hang on and to survive, and that's what he did. That makes you think twice, too, about coming in, throwing caution to the wind after something like that.
You have Johnson winning this fight?
Tom, I have him winning overwhelmingly.
Trejo ties him up inside. I would think that Johnson looks so much bigger and stronger. Well, of course, he's only a pound different, but he is 4 inches taller. That in a situation like that, he would have just thrown a half a dozen solid shots to the body, fought his way right out of that semi-clinch. He really dominated Trejo. Trejo is not that easy. Half a minute remaining here in round number 10. Johnson not throwing a lot of combinations. Right? One punch at a time. Good save.
This is the spot for him right here.
Right there. But Trejo is doing as good as anybody in this position. We'll be back. 10 rounds. Rich Barada has Johnson an overwhelming margin here, 99-91. Round gets 10, and the loser a lesser number. I really do like Trejo's corner and the sound advice. There's no horsing around over there. The guy telling him said, you know, you're losing this fight, and it's up to you to go out and win it, and you can. Johnson's tired. He doesn't have much on his punches. Quit getting hit in the head. Go out and impose your will on him.
It's hard to impose your will on a guy, though, that has so many physical advantages against you. In addition to, you know, all the skills that Arthur Johnson possesses.
Yeah.
But there was no question. He said, you know, you were losing this fight. And Trejo said, yeah, no.
Vince Delgado costing Johnson about holding and shoving, trying to spin Trejo around the ring. Trejo, a bit of a headlock on Johnson. Well, to his credit, Trejo's trying a lot harder here in this, the 11th round.
Interesting, the first time we saw Arthur Johnson here, Tom, when he fought Raton Jimenez in that scintillating bout that he just lost. And I remember we had Riddick Bowe sit in here for about 3 or 4 rounds with us. They were Olympic Games teammates back in '88, and Riddick was sitting here rooting for his Olympic teammate.
Yeah.
At that time, Riddick was riding herd in the heavyweights.
Yeah.
And was basically considered by just about everybody to be the best heavyweight in the world. You would have never thought then that it would be, not that long after that Riddick Bowe would be finished and out of boxing.
Yeah.
I mean, really been pummeled in his last 2 fights by Andrew Golota.
Yeah. And almost ridiculed, and you know, they forget just how good Riddick Bowe was. I don't know what happened, what transformed him. Perhaps Riddick Bowe doesn't even know.
No.
Johnson backing Trejo up now. Round 11 is just about in the books. Good right hand by Johnson.
Trejo beginning to feel the punches here a little, Tom.
He's having a tough 11th round. There's only one more to go. Johnson in defense of his title. We'll see how it all turns out after we see about this. And so the bell brings them out. They touch gloves. Here's the 12th and final round of this NABF flyweight title defense for the man in the white and red.
Tom, a big cut has opened over the eye of Trejo. It came out of nowhere. The corner, they couldn't stop the blood. And I mean, as he came out, I mean, they weren't close to stopping the blood. It was spurting out of his eye. The blood was as he came out for this 12th and final round.
The only comment out of Trejo's corner was just go out and box him this round. I think they realize that this is a fight Trejo can't win unless he somehow catches some magic in a bottle. And Johnson's corner, they were almost ecstatic about what a nice round he had put together in round 11, and they wanted more of the same. And indeed, he is now hammering Trejo and moving him around the ring, and Trejo grabbing and holding, and obviously much the worse for wear.
Bleeding badly from that left eye is Trejo, and Johnson trying to close the show strong. He really did fight very well in that 11th round, and trying to finish up here very strong.
And of course, Trejo has fought well, and he would like to go out on his shield, more or less. That I mean standing straight up and instead of being knocked out, but he is bleeding profusely from the cut in the left eye, and he is catching most everything Johnson is throwing at him now. And this is a fight of defense.
Well, it won't look that bad on his record, a decision loss to like Arthur Johnson.
No. And it will be only his first loss of his career. But he doesn't seem to have anything left, Rich. His punches are merely waving in the night. He's catching shots, backing up, almost ducking before Johnson throws one, and Johnson trying to catch him. Finds him still elusive, but not much of a threat offensively. Trejo catching a lot of leather now, and Johnson has him back right in his own corner.
A bad spot for Trejo when he gets up against the ropes or locked in those corners.
Yeah.
Arthur just keeps him pinioned there. When he tries to get off, he kind of pushes him back with his body. And this is one round he hasn't been able to fight at center ring. He's just been pinioned against the ropes, and you see what happens when that happens.
Right hand to left, and Trejo's in big trouble, and Vince Delgado is going to stop it, and I think rightfully so. Trejo really caught a ton of leather in the 11th round and about a ton and a half in the 12th. To his credit, he's a tough, gutty guy, but he just couldn't handle Arthur Johnson, who I'm sure another 10 seconds would have had him flat on his back. But there's no reason why this fight should not have been stopped, and Vince Delgado did the proper thing.
Great job by Johnson of keeping him up against the ropes and trapped in the corner in the whole round. He just never would allow Trejo to get out to center ring. Trejo's trying to slide away here, but he just can't escape. That escape route just cut off by Arthur Johnson. And finally, a good stoppage by Delgado. Too bad, though, for the kid that he couldn't quite last the 12.
Indeed. He fought well, valiantly, but in vain. Arthur Johnson, too much. The champion continues to hold the title, and we'll be back in a moment. The Great Western Forum, Arthur Flash Johnson closing in convincing fashion. Very impressive in rounds 11 and 12 to win and defeat his opponent, Mike Trejo, and continue to be the NABF flyweight champion. Jimmy Lennon Jr. has the official time as they stopped it in round number 12. Jimmy, if you will.
Ladies and gentlemen, with a time of 2 minutes 37 seconds in the 12th and final round of this bout, a referee in charge, Vince Delgado, stops the contest. He's the winner by way of knockout and still the NABF flyweight champion, Arthur Flash Johnson.
16-3 with 9 KOs now, and a moment to say a word or two about Trejo, who fought well, just was overcome by a man whose talents were considerably better than his. And there's Johnson, who really knew how to finish this fight, Rich, once he got the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, he wanted to finish it strong, Tom, and he could tell. Very intelligent fighter. He knew exactly what was happening and exactly what he had to do to wear down his opponent, and he finally got to him.
And, of course, after the fight, Trejo came over, and he and Johnson now are embracing in the center of the ring, congratulating each other in a fine night's work. It might not have been the prettiest of title defenses, but Johnson was convincing, and Trejo knows it better than anybody. A reminder now, Fox Sports Net's Fight Night at the Forum will be back Monday, July 14th. We've got the NABO featherweight champ, Juan Manuel Marquez. He's 20-1, has 14 knockouts.